Yeah, happy Friday again, everyone. Thank you for joining the Divi Spaces. We've got quite a lot of updates today, especially around our desktop app. I'll start with a quick intro for those who are listening and those who are listening for the first time. So Divi, as we know, we've started back in 2017. Our focus has always been about making crypto easy and accessible for everyone, everywhere, and that that hasn't changed. And across everything we are doing, you will see that. But what we try to do is to take that a step further from that, and also drive a lot of utility and make utility very easy as well. So across all of our products, you will see like such as our Divi Wallet, Divi DeFi, staking walls. You'll see all of those products are very easy to use. And again, if you ever got any questions, our support teams led by voice, 24/7 they're around, so they're always happy to answer you. So today we're going to cover quite a few things, starting from Divi 3.0 and the new desktop wallet 2.0. And we'll also take some questions, touch upon the website as well. And also, if any of you want to ask us some questions, then we really encourage you to do so. Any questions live, let's do that as well, because we always love talking to you guys. Without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Voice, over to you.
All right. Well, I think that most of you are here in the channel. I'm going to start with the Divi mobile wallet because we'll get that out of the way because it's going to have some big updates coming too. Most of you have seen over the last couple of weeks that there's been some messages that I put out. There's been some notifications in the support portal. There's been back-end things being done. Well, at the same time, there's been front-end work being done, and that deals with your user experience. And I want you to all make sure you update your mobile wallets coming this next week. There's been some great reintegrations with the new caching system that's been cleaned up and was resynced over the last couple of weeks. And the code that they use to communicate with that has had improved features and functionality, such as the asset balance, your history cache, your history sorting, the history cache, right? All of the rendering logic that goes into that, and your ERC20s, your masternode deployment process. Obviously, there's been a couple of questions about the masternode deploy process. Masternodes have been in maintenance since the last mobile release, and that has been dramatically changed, and the improvements will be released on this next release. So if you were trying to deploy, as I spoke about I think a couple of weeks ago, a masternode on mobile, your existing masternodes are great, but it won't deploy a mobile masternode because it is in maintenance, and it's still in maintenance until this release next week. So so be on the lookout for Divi Mobile Wallet. Oh, one of the things that I want to add before we jump off is that when you do conversions in the mobile wallet, let's say you have a hurdle with your flash conversion, right? Let's say it's taking a little longer than you would expect it. That's a perception, right? Because it can take minutes or it can take hours, or in some currencies and the liquidity in those markets could take 24 hours. But if you have a question about your conversion, you send in a request to the support portal, Divi's secure support portal. One of the things we ask for is the conversion ID, right? Because we don't know really anything about your conversion at that point. And so we want to be able to share that with the Change Now team. I request Neeks was able to work it in with the developers, and it's fantastic. So now when you have your conversion ID in the next release, and we say, what's that conversion ID? You can simply tap it and it copies it to your memory on your phone, and you can just paste it in, because it's difficult sometimes when you try to translate that, and if you miss a digit, we can't help you. It's not that we're not trying to, but those letters and numbers, as you know, it's like an address. It's better to cut and paste it than try to hand key it in. So that's a change that I'm excited about. How about that? You probably won't be, but I am. Anyway, so Divi 3.0. And most of you have seen, I hope, the communications I've been sending out about our journey. And it's a journey that I'm excited about. And of course, welcoming everyone on this journey. Divi 3.0 is all about utility, 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 And it is addressing some of the questions that people have had that have come through the support portal. It addresses some of the questions that people have had in the spaces. It addresses some of the conversations that have been expressed by the Cs when they're talking about building things and creating things. And in the past, before Divi 3.0 was able to be revealed, right? It was all about maybe utilizing other blockchain assets and features and functionality, right? I think that's probably the best way to describe it. And it's probably a good example to use DivX, right? So that was an ICO ERC20 token before we built the blockchain, which is Divi itself, the native blockchain. And then we have a tokenization of DAO, which is on ERC20. And what we see in the most simplistic example is Divi 3.0 will facilitate the things that we need to use for the DAO. And that really is fundamentally the smallest example I can give. There are so many things coming to Divi 3.0, and of course, if I start talking about too much, Ranuth is going to slap my hand. But you can see how excited I am about how that we as a community are going to be driving everything that deals with the functionality and the features, the opportunity, the incentivization on the blockchain itself will be managed and built by us through our vault system. That means you as a vault owner will be participating in the creation, in the support, in the infrastructure of the utility, whatever that utility may be. That's the gray area I'm going to leave out there. That's the dreamland that we are talking about and have talked about being built. So it's no longer something where we're focusing on others. It's all about us in making sure Divi itself is the feature blockchain producing all of that functionality, right? So that's the one key thing that I can describe. This is a shift in the blockchain, but it's also a purification of the blockchain. The reason why the vaults are being brought into the desktop application is because we have to lay the groundwork for the garden that is being made, that we're going to be able to plant all of our flowers in and our trees in, which will be Divi 3.0. So you just received an update in the desktop application, which features vaults. It is the very first iteration, right? It's the first iteration of the vault integration. It's brand spanking new. It is the version that I was just beta testing just days ago. Most of you saw that I put out a query, should we put it out? And overwhelmingly, the answer is yes. It is not finished. It is still being built. Today, even the devs are refining the user experience as it is, but the vaults are now there. Now, there's been questions about vaults that I've had. What is the difference between a vault and desktop staking? And maybe you've seen some of the tweets that I've put out, but the vaults themselves are everything that a staking node, a validator node on a desktop is. Vaults are all of that. So when you compare a desktop node or somebody who's very nerdy and they're running it on, let's say, a Raspberry Pi, right, or something like that, and what they're doing is they're mining the blocks. That's literally what they're doing. We're a hybrid proof of work, proof of stake blockchain. And so they're a virtual miner and they're mining the blocks. The desktop is a miner too. It's mining blocks. If you have the code, you could actually see it doing that. The validator nodes, validator vaults, do that too. But that's just the foundation level. That is the most minimum thing that they do. So when we talk about vaults, we're talking about the creation of a more robust environment. to compare a desktop wallet, and this is not a dismissive statement. I made a joke about Bruce Banner for those of you who like superheroes and those kinds of things. Bruce Banner is weak. He still does a lot of things, and then you have Hulk who does all of these massive things, and then you have Smart Hulk who does all. I have kids, so pardon me for the analogy. And so when we have these visualizations of maybe masternodes could be seen as Bruce Banner from that weak perspective. Maybe they had the brains of the network, and you had Hulk being the desktop node mining the blocks. Well, in this case, what we've done is we've combined the two into a vault. And once we did that, it created a foundation for the bridging of multiple levels and layers of technology. Meaning that vaults at a minimum are both a standard staking node. Vaults at a minimum provide the peer-to-peer network, archival network that masternodes do. So they are both those things. But vaults provide an infrastructure, an ecosystem. I don't know, Ranuk, how would you describe it? It provides rooms, I guess, of opportunity, meaning that what we dream and what we see will be built. And that's what's coming in the light paper that we've talked about. So
absolutely,
vaults are here, and vaults are what you need to embrace and migrate to eventually if you have a masternode. But what does that mean for you now? I've rambled on too much. What does that mean for you now if you have a masternode? What does that mean for you now if you have a desktop wallet and you're simply staking? It means at minimum, the only thing you need to do is update your daemon. So make sure that the engine is updated. Make sure if you have the desktop wallet, it's updated. Make sure that the core daemon is at minimum 214. Make sure those things are done. You don't need to migrate to a vault. That's absolutely not absolutely necessary at this moment in time. If you want to engage in the vault process that is current version 1 that's released, you can absolutely do it. It's ready. I've been vaulting now for months using this desktop. If you want to maintain and keep your masternode, you still need to update this wallet. You still need to make sure you have the right engine in the wallet. You can keep your masternode, and there are some good reasons for keeping your masternode. The DAO, which everyone here should be participating in, right? We've got how many people in the space? We've got 30 people here. At a minimum, there's 30 people. In Discord, there's thousands of people. For all the thousands of masternodes we have, every single masternode owner should be participating in the DAO. And the reason for this is the DAO is what's going to give you the ability as the community, because this is all about 100% about community, give you the voting and governance participation in the foundation and in the direction of the offerings of utility and opportunity, what we're building out and these kinds of things for the Divi ecosystem. This is engaging you as community members, because without you, Divi is nothing. So this is so important that you understand that you are Divi. That's the key thing. This isn't passive income. This is about participatory working in the environment that creates everything. And then, of course, the incentives that go along with that active work and participation, vaults. So when we talk about full circle, what are the differences between a desktop and a vault? Vaults will do and compete against desktops all day long. Vaults will do that. So you'll see that is when you look at the returns on the vaults from just the base level of managing the infrastructure, which is Divi blockchain, you can compare the two as far as when you're mining amounts, the staking amounts, those are the same because you're competing against each other. It just depends upon the weight of your coins in the mining portion of your device, right? Whether it's a vault or whether it's a desktop. So those would be the same. So if your questions are, what are the earning abilities in vaults? Today, if you're just talking about Divi, it's identical to a desktop. But that's today at this exact moment in time. Now I will segue. Divi 3.0 Divi 3.0 is where there will be multiple layers. So at first you're entering into door one, you have this amount of work you will continue doing, which is mining the blocks on the Divi blockchain. Vaults, because of their increased capacity, they're not a desktop computer, their increased stability, their increased RAM, their increased functionalities will also be able to facilitate all of the other things that are being talked about, what Nick is talking about in his tweets on bridging. And he's also mentioned some things about side chains. All of those are optional participations every vault will do. The question has been, why are there tiered vaults? Well, I guess I can most simplistically describe it as this. Different work on the blockchain will require different resources. Meaning when you're mining blocks on Divi, it's not a lot of work to do, right? I just described a Raspberry Pi can do it. But when you do other things, what about NFTs? What about bridging solutions? What about DEXs? What about storage? What about all of these other opportunities that I keep saying everybody has asked for? And in the past, it's been, no, we're a layer one blockchain. Now, if you've been in spaces over the last months, I've been saying, stop saying no and start saying, if you ask for it, just assume it's a yes. I'm saying yes to all of those options and opportunities. That's what's been built for us by Random String. That's what's been built by the Divi Foundation blockchain team. That means when you do things that are extra, it may require different resource levels. A desktop will not provide those stabilities and resource levels necessary to support all of these other features and functionalities. So the way I can describe it for those of us who have participated in other blockchain activities, most of you have known that I've deployed at least, maybe not as much as Mr. Masternode, but I've done at least 50 different masternodes, at least 50 different masternodes. Some very, very old systems I've built upon. I participate with other coins, right? Some of you have seen me in other communities. I do some support, voluntary support, and help others. Those other blockchains require a different level of resource. And so when you think about copper level staking nodes, they will provide one group or one level of utility features and functions that fit their resource levels, whatever those may be, however many that there will be, you'll be able to participate in them. Well, what about silvers? Well, those nodes actually have different levels of RAM, different levels of resources. It will be optimized, categorized, tiered for that level of resource needed for that level of functionality. What about platinum? Well, platinum will have another type of server. That's why there's different costs for those kinds of things that will provide the resources for those kinds of utilities. So everyone will be able to participate, whatever their node level will be, they will be incentivized to participate in those utilities that reach their tier functionality based upon those resources. Desktop nodes will not receive any of those features, functions, or incentives, but everybody with a desktop can participate in those features and functions if they have a vault. And so the same thing could be said for eventually the feature diamond node. A diamond node, for those of you who don't know, I don't want to segue too much and nerd out too much. As you know, I can talk. When you have larger UTXO batches, this is the nerd portion, when you have larger UTXO batches, if you want to make sure those UTXO batches are maximized to their fullest utility in the mining process, you need RAM. And so a Raspberry Pi that's a 2 gigabyte Raspberry Pi that has 10 million Divi, it's not going to be maximized for your earning incentives because it won't be able to handle all the work competing against me with my 32 gig gaming laptop. There's just not as much of the robustness that a Raspberry Pi will have. So when you flex that in different directions with vaults, it's doing the mining plus it's needing to facilitate other features and functions that are incentivized that you'll be able to earn Divi or whatever that other feature and function has a payment process in place that will incentivize you. You need to have that stability. You need to have that robustness. We need to make sure the chain has that strong state of finality. Everything is about you working, you building, you creating, and then being incentivized, and that's earning, right? That's where we're being able to either generate, mine the blocks, mint the coins, or at least be rewarded for the participatory environment that we are building. So everything for us is about utility. Sorry, I rambled a bit.
Yeah. No, I think, it's definitely worth talking about those things. And I think, there's a lot of things we covered. So, like we talked about yesterday, let's follow up with some graphics. That's going to help you understand exactly what we talked about, because it is quite a lot. Like, even when you talked to me yesterday, you're like, oh, that's a lot of things. So we will definitely follow that up. And we've already put the first blog post out yesterday about staking vaults, what's coming. And over the next kind of days and weeks, we'll continue to follow up with more articles so you can actually understand a little bit more about it. I think Papa Joe's got a question. Just going to add him. He's connected. Yeah. Hey, Papa Joe. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you guys doing today?
Very good, thank you.
Fantastic. Just curious. I have server equipment running. Is it better to run the master node, say, on a Xeon processor with significant RAM? Is that something that would be more advised, or does that really matter past a certain point?
My master nodes aren't going to make that much of a difference. That's one of the things about master nodes is master nodes are archival. Master nodes provide peer-to-peer network connections, right? That's where you get the stability on the network. How we can resync, right? The other thing that they do is they're passive, that's a key word here, passive revalidators. Passive revalidators, meaning that they are purely proof of stake. So because they're such a pure proof of stake model, they don't require too much power.
Okay.
And like a desktop wallet that's mining the blocks actually requires far more power than a master node. So I wouldn't do. You don't have to do that kind of stuff. That's nerd. Those are nerd questions. So I hope everybody's not going to sleep now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll
you know me.
I'll get into the weeds.
We love it. We love it.
You know, I love it. So no, you would use that for a vault. Now that's the other key thing. Everybody who he's got a piece of hardware that has obviously some power to it, you could convert that to a vault. Now, when we talk about the foundation and what the foundation is doing with vaults, everybody can manually deploy a vault. But if they manually deploy a vault today, all it will be at this exact moment in time is a miner on the blockchain. Today, we're talking about. Now, you can self-deploy vaults. But when we get to Divi 3.0, you will be able to self-deploy vaults also, but you will have to be extremely active in keeping up on the technology changes and the technological integrations. You personally will have to manage your vault to participate in making sure it's configured to work in all of the other features and functionalities. That means every single different utility you're going to have to build out, and you will manually build on your own machine, and you'll manage that. And that may be weekly, that may be daily, that may be monthly, that may be yearly. It depends upon what feature and functionality you're going to have to do. When you use the Mochi, or excuse me, the Vochi, that's my word for it. Rob hates it, but Vochi, you guys can tease me about that because he hates Vochi. The Vochi process is the great-grandchild of Mochi. Right? So Mochi has been through many iterations with the masternode system, and Vochi, as it deploys vaults, will automatically allow you in the desktop to click, and I'm paraphrasing because this is what I'm visualizing as it's coming, click, opt into all the different features and functions. I'm simplifying it, but you will be able to do it all through the desktop by actually just selecting the different choices and features and functions that you will participate on in the blockchain. Okay, and so those will be optionally built into the desktop when you use the Vochi process. Otherwise, you can do it manually, right?
Okay. So question then. So if you did the vault, is it going to be similarly set up? So I've set up multiple validators and different types of other platforms, right? So is it going to be similar setup to something like Cardano or something else, like where you actually have to stand up multiple servers and then they all need to be Linux, or they all need to be something specific around that? Or go ahead.
Well, okay, so simplified, I said no at first, but mainly because I was talking about the DPoS compared to the hybrid proof of work, proof of stake that we are. That was my default response. My apologies. We fundamentally, as a community, should value our individual work, right? So that's the difference that I'm talking about. It strengthens the network that way. So that's the difference that I was referring to. Now, when you're talking about running Linux or Windows or Mac, heck, you can run a server in anything. There's going to be a binary. That's the nerdy word for the engine, the daemon, for each of those. And so obviously you might not want to use a Windows server. There are lots of Windows Server fans out there, but
I prefer not to if I can help it.
Yeah, you know, I'm saying if you're going to run something, you would run probably Linux just for its stability, its general security. The main thing about vaults is they are cryptographically far different than a validator node on any network. They're cryptographically different than a smart contract. Although here's the key word, they are, and everybody can use this, you're going to see it written more and more often, they are a Divi special smart contract. So those are key words there. Vaults are a Divi special smart contract. But that smart contract, which is what Nick is leaning on in his tweets about bridging, always keeps the user sovereign over their funds. When you utilize a validator node on another network, you allocate it to a smart contract, and that smart contract takes over those funds, essentially, locks them for you. Divi doesn't ever do that. So when you participate in a DPoS system, I actually have coins in other DPoS networks. This isn't a ding on anyone, because some of those are awesome blockchains. Divi will not do that, where it pools your assets into another system, and then by working together, then also leverage the mining algorithm, because that's what they're doing, but then take some of your funds from that algorithm and then share some of those funds with you. It's a different kind of a network, but from a sovereignty perspective, we as a community should embrace the fact that what her random string built was something that is so far away from a security, so far away from anything where they're talking about ownership. Vaults keep you as the owner completely in control of your funds the entire time. The way a vault works is much like an Airbnb or much like a peer space. If I run an Airbnb and you want to stay there over the weekend, or maybe I have a space that I want to rent out as a business, any third party can host a vault for you. But cryptographically, you actually do the work in that location. It's you doing the work. It's not somebody else. You're basically using the hardware. And so since there's a cold process involved, there's no way the person that owns the hardware can ever touch your funds, can ever lock your funds, can ever restrict your funds. There's no smart contract going to stop that, take that owner, so where they can hold back some of your payments. It is you cryptographically working virtually afar, and that's the magic. It is too complicated for me to explain on this call. We're already at 30 minutes. But anytime anybody wants to talk, this is all about sovereignty. This is all about autonomy. This is all about respecting Satoshi and Satoshi's vision for blockchain. But at the same time, vaults are embracing Vitalik. So there's the little cool things I threw in there. Still embracing Satoshi, still embracing autonomy, still embracing your freedoms, but there's a handshake going on. There's a bringing in, and there's a hug, and there's an embrace that takes the ideas of somebody like Vitalik and says, we can do this together. Divi isn't competing with ETH. Divi isn't competing with Bitcoin. Divi is now becoming something very powerfully, very much something different that embraces the two. This is you guys should be excited. I'm extremely excited.
That kind of answers one of the questions as well that we had from Nick Stake. Crypto Keeper, do you have a question? I don't know if it was answered, but
Yeah, this is Jim Flanagan. What's up, everybody? I just
Jim.
have, hey, you and your Airbnb. I just have two comments, maybe to simplify some things and answer a couple of questions that I've been getting. One of the benefits of the staking vault, and yesterday, per our conversation, we used a word called compounding, but that's not necessarily the correct word, but we'll use it anyways.
Sure.
One of the benefits of a staking vault is right now with a master node, you're allocating, and we'll just use the copper node, for example, 1,000 Divi. And the question always is, what are you doing with your rewards? The staking vaults will now be 1 Divi to 200,000 Divi will be considered a copper. So if you have a copper and you put it into a staking vault, a copper staking vault, that 100,000 will then generate rewards that stay in the copper node up to 200,000. And then you can push it to the next one, which will, instead of going to 300,000 for the next tier up, it'll go to 500,000. So if you already have a silver at 300, then you'll be able to, again, keep that in that vault up to 500,000. So that's one of the benefits that I think is very important that people know, because again, questions I've been asked. Secondly, with regards to your computer, i3s aren't going to cut it. If you've got an older laptop or something like that, it's in your best interest to upgrade to a better device, right? Period.
I will add that i3s have never been able to cut it and never should have been used ever on anything related to Divi's blockchain.
Well, I know there's a few of you guys out there that have i3s. I've talked to you.
Of course, so have I.
It's time to upgrade. It's time to upgrade.
They should have never. They shouldn't be used. Well, I should say you have freedom to use whatever you want, right? I said a Raspberry Pi. It's the problem with these i3s. i3s are netbooks. i3s are even in the latest versions. Although the latest versions are pretty handy, they're getting pretty good. So maybe not the last release of the i3s, but i3s were what you gave your kids when they were doing their homework. So i3s weren't meant for gaming. i3s weren't meant. They were what you sent your kid off to college with when you didn't want him playing PlayStations. You wanted him to do his work, and he had essentially a powerful net kind of a book to do it. It's a little bit better than that, but it's good for word processing and those kinds of things. Ask your favorite person at Best Buy. They'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, that's great. Any other questions from anyone before we move on? So we've got some more questions as well. I think, is there anything else to update? We've obviously shared some parts of the dev journal with you at the start, but what we'll do is we'll also follow up from the wallet account, a full host of stuff that Neeks and the team have been working on. So we'll share that.
There was a question about what happens to my subscriptions from my masternode that has been removed and the payment is done, and how do you deal with the running and already paid for emoji subscriptions when ending the masternodes? Well, you should only have month-to-month subscriptions, right? So if you have legacy yearly subscriptions, then you already missed the boat. You were supposed to, as Renuk can validate, how many emails went out at least in October of last year that said don't renew those long legacy subscriptions. How many emails did you send out?
Yeah, we sent heaps.
Heaps is probably a minimum statement. So if you have legacy subscriptions, you've already missed something that you should have been paying attention to already, which is canceling and not renewing that legacy subscription. There should be 0 today year-long legacy subscriptions. If you have a legacy subscription that you're still running, you need to open up a ticket so I can help you, or Gary or anybody else. Because you shouldn't have them. And so that would be key. So you should only have month-to-month. If there's month-to-months, we're going to go ahead and prorate those as you move into the vaults. So there'll be something that's overly technical for me. There will be something that will be done, but we will handle all of that. You know we will. We're always good with that. I'm aggressively a community member supporting everyone because I am a community member. So when it comes to those kinds of things, I attack those with vigor to make sure that you're taken care of. So yeah, but year-long subscriptions, yeah, that's that. You shouldn't have any if you have them.
Cool. Any other questions? No? Okay. I think we've gone over a little bit as well. But yeah, if you've got anything else, we could just definitely follow up on Discord or any of the other social channels you want. But ideally, Twitter and Discord is usually where we are most kind of active. Anything else to add?
Wait. I just got a notification. Very, very exciting. This just came across my screen on Telegram. Yes, I'm still in Telegram, but not actively. The engine that's going to be released to GitHub for the open source community that's building. So if you have your own vault or you have your own Raspberry Pi, I keep using that because that's an extreme example, but yes, you may have one. If you have Box Wallet, right? So there's a Box Wallet example. The engine that will be released there is not going to be 2.14, which is what you have currently on desktop. That engine being released will be the future engine, Divi 3.0. So when you see that happen, you don't need to worry about anything. You don't need to address anything. You don't need to worry about it at all. I thought that what we were going to be getting was 2.14 for the exchanges and everybody else to get that's in the open source community. This tells you how fast things are moving. This has been in the works for 2 years, quietly behind the scenes, kind of squashed, pushed down, and not really talked about at all in the community, but I've been also participating in it. Divi 3.0 is actually coming faster than I thought. So you will see, I'll release some notes on it, but I'm getting the information from the devs that 3.0 is actively, aggressively pushing into the door right now. So it's coming fast.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a really good high to end on for this week. Thank you as always for everyone for joining us, and for any of those who will listen to us later, thank you as well. And yeah, stay engaged, and like Roy said, get involved. And we'll see you next week. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.